Let me ask you something. Think of the last time you felt truly at peace. I mean deeply, quietly, genuinely at peace. Where were you? What were you doing? And now, who was in the room? I have spoken with hundreds of people in the later chapters of their lives, and again I hear the same thing. Not complaints about illness, not fear of death, but something quieter and in many ways more painful. I give and give and give, and I leave every conversation feeling worse than when I arrived. I love this person, but being around them exhausts me in a way I cannot explain. I don't know how to pull away without feeling like a terrible person. If any of those words landed somewhere in your chest just now, this teaching is for you. Today, we are going to talk about 5 types of people who may be quietly consuming your peace, your health, and your remaining years. Not strangers, not enemies, people you love. And I want to be clear from the very beginning. This teaching is not about hatred. It is not about abandonment. It is not about building walls. It is about wisdom and compassion. For them, yes, but also, finally, for yourself. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a beautiful quality called upekkha, often translated as equanimity. It is one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abodes of the heart. And many people misunderstand it. They think equanimity means not caring, staying cold, feeling nothing. But that is not what the Buddha taught at all. Upekkha is the wisdom to love without being swept away, to remain present without being consumed, to care for someone deeply, while also recognizing when your care has become a vehicle for your own suffering. The Buddha said something that many in the West find surprising. He said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." That is not selfishness. That is the foundation of all genuine compassion. A lamp that has no oil cannot light a room. A heart that has been drained dry cannot offer warmth to anyone. And so I ask you, especially if you are 60, 70, 80 years old or beyond, how much oil is left in your lamp? In Buddhist teaching, human life is considered extraordinarily precious, not just because it is short, but because it offers a rare opportunity for awakening. Every moment we have is a window, and in the later years of life, that window carries a particular quality of light. There is a clarity available to older practitioners that younger people simply do not yet have access to. The question is, are you using that clarity, or is someone else using it up for you? The Buddha recognized these patterns. He named them in the suttas. He warned his students about the kinds of friendships and associations that hinder the path, not to encourage coldness, but to protect what is most precious. Let me show you 5 of these patterns. And as I describe each one, I invite you to sit with it gently, without rushing to judgment of them or of yourself. You know this person. Perhaps it is a sibling who has been miserable for 40 years. Perhaps it is a neighbor who calls every afternoon with a new grievance. Perhaps, and I say this with great compassion, it is a close friend who has become so accustomed to suffering that suffering is now their primary way of connecting with the world. Every conversation begins the same way. Their health, their children, the government, the weather, the neighbor, the doctor who didn't listen, the store that overcharged them. And you listen because you are kind, because you care, because somewhere inside you hold hope that maybe this time your listening will finally help. But here is what the Buddha observed about this pattern, and modern psychology confirms it. In Pali, there is a word, papancha. It refers to the proliferation of the mind, the way the mind takes a small seed of discomfort and grows it, feeds it, expands it into an entire field of suffering. For someone deeply caught in papancha, every complaint leads to another. Every problem, if solved, reveals three more. They are not looking for solutions, they are looking for an audience. And when you are their audience, session after session, year after year, their suffering migrates. It does not leave them, it multiplies inside you. You may have noticed this. You arrive to visit feeling fine, you leave feeling heavy. That heaviness has a name. It is called empathic exhaustion. And for those in their 60s and beyond, it can affect your sleep, your immune system, your own relationship with joy. What does wisdom look like here? It does not look like cruelty. It does not look like slamming a door and never speaking again. It looks like what I call compassion without absorption. You can love the chronic complainer. You can offer genuine warmth, but you can limit the time. You can gently redirect the conversation. You can say, with kindness, I hear you, and today I need us to speak about something that brings us both some lightness. You are not abandoning them. You are refusing to drown with them. This one is harder to talk about because the guilt tripper is often someone we love very deeply. A child, a sibling, a spouse of many decades, sometimes a very old friend. They do not threaten you, they do not shout, but they have mastered a particular kind of language. The language of quiet suffering that places the blame for their pain squarely on your shoulders. I just thought, after everything I've done for you, I don't want to be a burden. I'll be fine, alone. You've changed. You never used to be like this. Each sentence is a small hook, and the hook is designed to catch on your conscience and pull. In Buddhist psychology, this pattern often arises from lobha, a word usually translated as greed or attachment. But lobha is not always about money or possessions. It can manifest as a desperate need to control the behavior and presence of others. The guilt tripper is, at root, terrified. Terrified of being left. Terrified of losing influence. And so they weaponize your love. Here is a question I would like you to sit with, not to answer aloud, but to hold privately, with honesty. When you respond to this person, when you cancel your plans, adjust your boundaries, apologize for things that are not your fault, are you acting from love? Or are you acting from fear? Fear of their reaction. Fear of their tears, fear of what they might say to others, fear of the label, uncaring, selfish, cold. The Buddha taught that action rooted in fear cannot produce genuine peace, for you or for the person you are trying to appease. Wisdom here looks like discernment. It looks like asking yourself, what do I genuinely owe this person? What is real responsibility? And what is manufactured obligation? It looks like responding from your own values, from sila, from your precepts and your integrity, rather than from the pressure of someone else's emotional weather. You can love someone completely and still refuse to be managed by them. I want to be careful here because the energy vampire is different from the chronic complainer. The complainer tells you about their suffering. The energy vampire enlists you into it constantly in a way that makes you feel responsible for holding their entire life together. They call at all hours. They need a favor, always urgent, always one more. They have crises that require your immediate presence, your immediate advice, your immediate emotional availability. And when you step back, even slightly, they experience it as abandonment. I have worked with many older practitioners over the years, and one pattern I see repeatedly is this. A woman in her late 60s who has spent her life as a caregiver to her children, to her husband, to her aging parents, and now finds herself the anchor for an adult child, or a demanding friend, or a sibling who never quite learned to manage their own life. She cannot sit in meditation for 20 minutes without her phone buzzing. She cannot take a walk without feeling guilty that she is unavailable. She wakes at 3 in the morning, not because of her own concerns, but because she has absorbed theirs. In Buddhist teaching, this dynamic is rooted in upadana, clinging, attachment. The energy vampire clings to you because on some deep level, they have not yet learned to generate their own sense of safety and well-being. You have become their external source of peace. And here is the painful paradox. By always being available, by always rushing in, you are actually preventing them from developing that internal resource. The most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to practice what I call loving distance. Not coldness, not absence, but the deliberate, compassionate act of remaining slightly out of reach so that they have the space to discover what you already know, that peace comes from within. Guard your mornings, guard your silence, guard the stillness that makes your practice possible. These are not luxuries. At your age, they are medicine. This person may be harder to recognize because on the surface, they seem harmless. They are simply very attached to the past, to old memories, old roles, old versions of who you were. They remind you of your mistakes from 30 years ago as if they happened last Tuesday. They refer to you by the role you used to play, the warrior, the difficult one, the one who always needed help, as if you have never changed, never grown, never moved an inch since 1987. They say things like, "Oh, you were always like that," or "Remember how you handled the situation back then? That's just how you are." And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to inhabit that old identity again. You begin to respond as that older, smaller, more fearful version of yourself. Because the relationship has a gravity, a groove worn deep over decades, and it is easier to slide back into it than to resist. This is profoundly contrary to one of the central teachings of the Buddha, anicca, impermanence. Nothing is fixed, nothing is static. Every moment, every cell, every thought, every version of who you are is changing. The Buddha saw this as liberation, not loss. You are not who you were at 40, or 60, or even last year, and neither are they. But the nostalgic anchor is in a quiet war with impermanence. They need you to stay the same, because if you change, if you grow, if you find peace and equanimity and wisdom, it disrupts the story they have been telling themselves about you, and perhaps about themselves. For seniors especially, this pattern carries a particular danger. It can make you feel as if your chapter of growth is already finished. As if the person you have always been is the person you must remain. As if transformation belongs only to the young. This is simply not true. The Therigatha, the ancient Pali text of the elder nuns, is full of women who found awakening late in life. who shed old identities, who became utterly new. You are still becoming. Do not let anyone anchor you to a version of yourself that you have already outgrown. This fifth type may be the most insidious of all, because they sound so reasonable. They say things like, "At your age, why are you spending so much time meditating? Shouldn't you be enjoying yourself?" Or, "All this Buddhist stuff, I just worry it's making you distant. You're not the same person." Or perhaps most painfully, "I think this is all a phase. I just want you to be realistic." They frame it as concern. Sometimes it is, genuinely, though misdirected. But sometimes, if we look carefully, what is actually happening is this: your growth threatens them. When you begin to sit in stillness, when you begin to question old patterns, when you begin to choose your relationships more carefully and protect your inner life more deliberately, some people in your life will feel unsettled because your transformation holds up a mirror and they are not ready to look. In Buddhist terms, this is the shadow side of miccha ditthi, wrong view. Not just factual error, but a deeply mistaken understanding of what human life is for. The naysayer operates from the assumption that at a certain age, the possibility of genuine spiritual development has passed. That wisdom is for the young and the scholars. That peace, real peace, is something to be deferred or simply abandoned. But the Buddha himself taught until his final breath. The great arahants of the Pali tradition included farmers, grandmothers, former kings, and ordinary people who came to the path in the last years of their lives and arrived. Your meditation practice is not a hobby. Your spiritual path is not a phase. It is the most important work available to a human being. And the later years of life, with their natural loosening of ambition and identity, can be the most fertile ground for that work that you have ever had. Guard your practice the way you would guard something sacred, because it is. When someone, with kindness, with concern, with love, tries to talk you out of it, you can listen. You can receive their care gracefully, and then you can return quietly to your cushion. Before we go any further, I need to say something that I suspect many of you are already feeling. You recognize some of these people. You love them. And everything in you resists the idea of pulling away. Because you are not a cold person. You are not an abandoner. You believe in loyalty, in family, in showing up. I hear that, and I honor it completely. But I want to offer you a distinction that I believe can change the way you see this. There is a practice in Buddhism called metta, loving kindness. In this practice, we learn to wish all beings well. Every being, those near to us, those distant from us, and yes, even those who have caused us harm. But here is what metta does not require: your physical proximity, your constant availability, your sacrifice of sleep, health, peace, and practice. You can send genuine loving kindness to the chronic complainer from across town. You can hold the guilt tripper in your heart with warmth while declining to be manipulated. You can pray for the energy vampire's healing without being the instrument of it at the cost of your own. Proximity is not the same as love. We have been taught, especially those of us raised in certain cultures and certain eras, that love is proven by endurance, by how much you tolerate, by how little you ask for yourself. But that teaching has never, in any tradition I know, led to genuine peace. You can love someone fully, completely, with your whole heart, and still choose to protect your peace. These two things are not in conflict. In fact, it is only when you protect your own inner light that you have something real to offer anyone. I would like to invite you now to pause with me for just a moment. You do not need to close your eyes, though you may. Simply allow yourself to settle. Think of one person in your life who, when you spend time with them, leaves you feeling a little emptier than before. Not with anger, not with blame, simply with clarity. Hold their face gently in your mind. Now ask yourself 3 questions. Take your time with each one. First, how do I feel after time with this person? Not during, after, an hour later, the following morning. What is the quality of that feeling? Second, when I adjust my behavior for this person, when I stay longer than I should or give more than I have, am I doing that from love? Or am I doing it from fear of what happens if I don't? Third, what would the wisest, most compassionate version of me actually do here? Not the most guilt-ridden, not the most accommodating, the wisest. This is not therapy, and it is not judgment. This is vipassana, insight practice, applied to the conditions of your daily life. The Buddha did not teach us to meditate only on a cushion. He taught us to bring the quality of clear seeing into every corner of our experience. What do you see when you look clearly? I want to close by saying something directly to you, and I want you to really hear it. The years you have left are not a consolation prize. They are not a slow diminishment. They are not simply the long, quiet aftermath of a life already lived. They are an offering. In many ways, they are the most luminous years available to a practitioner of the Dharma. The ambitions that once cluttered your mind have quieted. The roles you once performed with such urgency, parent, professional, provider, have softened. The ego, if we have done even a little work, has grown somewhat more transparent. This is extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily precious. The ancient texts are full of people who arrived at liberation not in youth but in old age. The Therigatha, the songs of the elder nuns, contains verse after verse of women who found awakening after decades of ordinary life, after marriages and losses and disappointments and grief. A grandmother, a widow, a woman who had spent 60 years sleepwalking, and then, one afternoon, simply woke up. This is available to you right now, in this chapter, in this life. But only if you guard it. Guard your silence. Protect the time you set aside for sitting, for breathing, for simply being. Guard your community, your sangha, whether that is a formal group or simply 2 or 3 people with whom you share this path. And yes, guard your energy, not selfishly, but wisely, the way a gardener guards a late bloom, knowing the season is precious and the frost can come at any time. The 5 people we spoke of today, the complainer, the guilt tripper, the energy vampire, the nostalgic anchor, the naysayer, they are not villains. They are suffering beings just as we are. They deserve compassion. They deserve our metta. But they do not deserve your final years. You deserve your final years. I will close with a blessing in the ancient Pali language, the language in which the Buddha's teachings were first preserved. Even if you do not know the words, Allow yourself to receive the intention behind them. Sabbe satta sukhita hontu. May all beings be happy. Sabbe satta avira hontu. May all beings be free from enmity and danger. Sabbe satta abhyapajja hontu. May all beings be free from suffering. Sabbe satta sukhi attanang pariharantu. May all beings take care of themselves in happiness. This includes you. It has always included you. Go gently, go wisely, and may your remaining years be filled with the peace you have always deserved.